And hello, welcome to the Sutliffian Report. We've got Dr. Eric Smith and Darcy with us today, and today I'm going to discuss. I'm going to bring in one of my classes. I've been listening to Eric's show. I've been listening to Sama's show and Christian Prince and many others. And I just had the privilege of seeing what my student that just interviewed Eric. If you want to go see Wake 'em Up Ministry, you can get to see one of Eric's interviews. And actually, I think there's two up there now. It's pretty interesting because every single person that is doing debates is encountering logical fallacies. So before we get started, I do want to read from the Word to get this going. And so let me get into that first. Okay, today we're reading Matthew 7, verses 7 to 12. Ask and it shall be given you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asks receives. And he that seeks finds. And to him that knocks it shall be opened. Or what man is there of you, if his son asks bread, will he give him a stone? Or if he ask a fish, will he give him a serpent? If you then, being evil, know how to give good gifts unto your children, how much more so shall your Father which is in heaven give good things to them that ask him? Therefore, all things whatsoever you would that men should do to you, do you even so to them, for this is the law and the prophets. And I just want to remind you, Jesus was only talking to his disciples, so there were no women present. So that's why you don't hear the word women or female or her or she mentioned. So our God is a God that does impossible things. Ask, seek, knock are all words telling us about our need to communicate with God in prayer. Even better, Jesus tells us God wants to grant our prayers. Sometimes we keep our wishes and hopes and dreams to ourselves, but shouldn't we ask God also? When we're hungry and we haven't asked God for food, are we not foolish? Jesus shows us how foolish that is by showing how we as parents of children provide food for our children. We are but human, yet those loving actions of feeding our own hungry children is personalized by Jesus to show us God as being that personal, loving Father who is able to do all. God has to be better than us mere humans, or he's not worthy of our worship. God has to be able to answer our prayers in order for him to be worthy of our worship. He is. How can we who know this loving God, who came and offered himself up in our place to bear the penalties for our sins, not recognize the greatness of Jesus and his love? How can we dare to think of him above listening to think of him as vain, as just above listening to our vain and sometimes truly needy requests. Our God is personal. He cares about you and me, and he shows it in so many ways. How can he not be close to us like family when he's died for us? I think we need to think about that. Dear Lord Jesus, thank you that for being a God that listens to our sometimes vain and sometimes silly requests, Lord. We ask many things in your name, Lord. Lord, thank you for being the one who listens. Thank you for being the one who answers. In your name, Lord Jesus, amen. Wow. Now, the reason why I, again, I picked logical fallacies is because after sitting through, let's see, one, two, well, 5 or 6 shows that I've either been on or watched. Yeah, 5 or 6 shows I've been on this past couple weeks, and I look at every single one of them when they interview a Muslim, or I shouldn't interview, or they offer a chance for them to debate. I like to listen to Christian Prince. It's the same thing. I like to listen to so many others that are out there. I can't even name all of the ones that I listen to. I sit there and I'm just marveling at all the fallacious reasoning. Now, you can see this also with the people we call libs. They are silly. And I say this being respectful, but it's our own foolishness for not recognizing they are silly. That's a problem when you think about it. It's silly because they don't use logical reasoning. Now, silly is an important thing to think about. Would you like to listen to someone who sounds foolish? And that's one of the reasons I dedicate this show to Aladdin. Let's educate those like Aladdin who don't understand logical fallacies. So here we go. I'm just going to start this. I have this in a video format so you can see the videos that I put in and I taught with. One of those will come up that I've shared on Eric's show. But Eric, I just want to ask, have you do you encounter a lot of fallacies, especially on what was it called, the chat room that you work in?
Which chat room is that?
Oh, what's it called, that program? I don't can't think. I
Oh,
don't.
Clubhouse.
Clubhouse, yes.
Yeah, Clubhouse. Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, when you look at Islam itself, it's one logical fallacy. It depends upon a book. It depends on a book to be true, but then says that book has been corrupted. It's just, it's insane that the way that they try to apply it. But yeah, you run across them all the time.
All right, so I'm going to just get into this. This is, I hope everybody, please, if you have a comment, please just go ahead and say something. This to me is just full. I put a lot of humorous commercials in here. And when I teach this class, I have a lot of people who come in nervous. Oh, this is too hard to understand. Most of the people I teach have a high school education. They don't have any college education. And when they come in, they're all scared because it sounds all technical and stuff. And then they laugh all the way through the class, and they never forget anything they were taught that day. I promised them they would laugh all the way through, and then they do. All right, so we're just going to start. All right. So this is a genetic fallacy. I'm just going to grow the screen. This claim that a history of a claim is relevant to the truth of a claim. The claim that an idea, a person, product must be trustworthy because of its racial, geographic, or ethnic origin. Remember, before civil rights passed, how did the justifications for racism sound?
Would say, hey, you know what, this whole Christian thing, it's just a fluke. Suppose somebody was born in Saudi Arabia, they would be a Muslim by nature of where they were born.
Yes, that's very true, but to think that somehow invalidates a person's Christian belief is a textbook example of a logical fallacy called the genetic fallacy. The genetic fallacy is trying to invalidate a position by showing how a person came to hold it. And that's obviously an invalid way of reasoning. A person might come to hold a belief for any number of reasons, some of them inadequate, but that doesn't show that the belief itself is false. So, for example, if you had been born in ancient Greece, you probably would have believed that the earth is flat and perhaps that the sun goes around the earth. But does that mean that your belief that the earth is round and that it goes around the sun is therefore unjustified or false? Well, obviously not. You cannot invalidate a belief simply by showing how a person came to hold it. That is to commit the genetic fallacy.
All right. And how about the appeal to force? I am strong, therefore my answer is right. You'll see this a lot in Islam. If you watch the DCCI ministries, you see that usually has an implied threat, coercive nature. And
Yes, Islam is the fastest growing religion.
yeah, that's exactly it. And you'll hear people come out and they'll scream and yell. And I talked to Usama about this one time. I'm just gonna take us out of this for a second. I talked to Usama one time about how I didn't understand why when you'll see a Christian and a Muslim debate and the Muslims tend to get louder and louder and louder, and he says that's a cultural thing. Okay, so now I understand that that's a cultural norm. He says the one who's the loudest is usually considered the winner. Oh, okay. Like, so that made some sense to me. I can accept those cultural, type concepts, but is that again fallacious? So I want to go back to this, and you'll have a good laugh. All right, here we go.
Chekhov, what do you think of my plan to improve security aboard ship by implementing daily searches of all low-ranking crew members for contraband?
Well, I don't think it will work. I believe it will be counterproductive.
How would you like to spend a week in sickbay with low-power phaser burns to your fingers? Well, or perhaps an hour in the agony booth would change your mind, eh?
Upon reflection, I think frequent searches is a great idea.
I, of course, overheard your remarks. Yes, sir.
Sir.
The argument you are employing, Mr. Sulu, is not logical. In fact, it exhibits the fallacy of argumentum ad baculum, also known as the appeal to force.
I thought Security Chief Sulu was very persuasive.
That may be so, Navigator Chekhov, but the form of the argument is invalid. This fallacy is an argument where force, coercion, or the threat of force is given as a justification for accepting the conclusion. But, sir, I only... If I may continue. While your tactic of physical intimidation and domination of your subordinate through force are to be commended as effective means of serving the Empire's objectives, your statements are still technically a logical fallacy, since you provide no evidence that your plan to improve security aboard ship is a good one. The ad baculum argument is a special case of argumentum ad consequentium, or appeal to consequences. In this case, painful consequences.
Thank you, Commander Spock.
Yes, I would ensure I have valid reasons behind my security plans in the future. That would be very advisable.
So one of the things we see, you're laughing. One of the things we see every year, almost every month, is CARE writing to an organization saying, we're going to shut you down, we're going to sue you, and we're going to do this and that to ruin your good name. Oh, so you're going to use the appeal to force fallacy. Oh, okay. I get it.
And that's
You're muted.
exactly what Bulmer does, or did to you, Eric.
I sit there and I showed this to I had a policeman in the class from one of the last times I showed this, and he just sat there and roared, and he says, I encountered this too many times during the day. Yeah. And we don't think about it, but again, that is all logical fallacy. And You think about your high school days, you'll remember them. And that's one of those things you remember from your high school days. That one just brings back, when you start thinking about it again, to me, it's funny. I mean, this is why fallacies should be humorous to us. If we start to look,
this is the might makes right
yes,
type idea.
yeah. If your might makes right, and you actually believe that, we have a problem because we don't know whether to trust anything you say if you really believe that, because your arguments are invalid, and even the dangerous Mr. Spock agrees with that one, which is kind of scary.
I mean, what is this? Is like the hippie version of Star Trek, or I mean, I noticed Sulu, or no, it wasn't Sulu. Is it Sulu with the guy with the scar down the side of the face?
I've heard of an alternative type universe. I'm not a Trekkie, so I won't be able to tell you that, but I'd heard of alternative type universe where they were the opposite of being good, which is
okay.
I'm
not a Trekkie either. I just kind of like the cartoon.
Oh yeah, every single fallacy we're going to discuss has an advertisement or a cartoon with it. Some are cartoon advertisements, and you're going to die laughing. That's all right. Let's go on to the next one. Here we go. And so ad hominem, think against the man, insult. Is a fallacy relevant when someone rejects or criticizes another person's point of view on the basis of personal characteristics, background, physical appearance, and other features irrelevant? More than just an insult, it's an insult as if we were in an argument or evidence of support of a conclusion.
Ad hominem is a Latin phrase meaning literally to the man. It refers to a logical fallacy, or in other words, a bad argument. Ad hominem is when someone uses a personal attack as an argument. This takes many forms, 4 of which will be covered in this video. The first is the abusive form. For example, John argues that because dark chocolate has antioxidants and most other candies only have sugar which rots your teeth, dark chocolate is therefore better than most sweets. Tim responds to this argument, "Yeah, but you're a greedy jerk." Whatever John's moral character may be, Tim's response is not an argument. John may in fact be a greedy jerk, but that doesn't make him wrong. Another more common variant of this is the circumstantial form. For example, if Tim were to respond to John's argument saying, "Yeah, but you work for the chocolate company. You're paid to say that." John may have been paid to make the argument, but that doesn't address the argument he was making. Now, if Tim were to respond to John's argument, "Yeah, but I saw you eating a candy cane," this would be an example of the third variant of ad hominem, called tu quoque, which is Latin for "you also." Being a hypocrite does not invalidate an argument. The fourth and final form of ad hominem is the guilt by association. This would be if Tim responded to John by saying, "Nazis also believed dark chocolate was better," implying that, holding this belief, John is as bad as a Nazi. That still is not an argument. John may in fact be a Nazi, but that doesn't automatically make him wrong. It certainly doesn't address the issue at hand. Just remember, a personal attack is not an argument. So the next time you see this happening in a discussion, make sure to link them to this video.
So there's a lot of these. There's a couple other videos that go with this one.
United States.
Sarah Palin, taking aim at your decision to restrict use of nuclear weapons, your pledge not to strike nations, non-nuclear nations, who abide by the non-proliferation treaty. Here's what she said. She said, "It's unbelievable. No other administration would do it." And then she likened it to kids on a playground. She said, "You're like a kid who says, 'Punch me in the face, and I'm not going to retaliate.'"
Yeah.
Your response?
I really have no response to that. The last I checked, Sarah Palin's not much of an expert on nuclear issues.
All right, one more. And this is this was a real ad for a Republican, believe it or not.
Need their privacy.
When I die, Harold Ford will let me pay taxes again.
Ford's right. I do have too many guns.
I met Harold at the Playboy party.
I'd love to pay higher marriage taxes.
Canada can take care of North Korea. They're not busy.
So we took money from porn movie producers. I mean, who hasn't?
The Republican National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
All right. I when I saw that, I couldn't believe it to begin with. How many times? All right. Here we go. Hi, George. Thanks for joining us. I want to say I run into the ad hominem a lot, and I sit there and I laugh. I like the first video because it explains especially the part where they're talking about the different variants of it. And I've heard the when you listen to liberals, they'll accuse you sometimes of being a Nazi. The purpose is, again, it's an attack, association, guilt by association. I don't know if you've heard that one, Eric or George or Darcy.
Well, when you engage in these discussions, they're always you're always going to be attacked, and it's always the first thing is your intelligence. It's then your inability to speak Arabic, and then it's the corruption of. So it's always this ad hominem attack on you for being stupid is essentially what we get. And again, you just have to develop a thick skin, is what you have.
That was an actual advertisement for that Republican. It was a real advertisement. It wasn't make believe. So I sat there kind of.
Who ran against Harold Ford for the U.S. Senate in Tennessee?
I'll go back and I'll show you the screen again because that just will blow your mind.
I'll look at it.
Harold Ford Jr. It was who they were talking about, and I can't remember who it was. This was an actual ad that ran against Harold Ford Jr.
Bob Corker.
And
Bob Corker.
Bob Corker.
Bob Corker. All 5'4" of Bob.
But we hear about people being upset with nasty ads. That took the cake. I haven't seen a nastier advertisement. Thank you for joining us, Connie. I hope you're all having a good laugh. Hope you're all having a good laugh. All right, so I will go back and we'll go on. All right. Okay, and that should be just about done. I put this in the video format because I couldn't share the sound otherwise. So, and okay.
Ad hominem is a Latin phrase meaning ad hominem is a Latin.
Okay, ad populum, argument to the people. Using an appeal, popular assessment, often aroused by feelings of enthusiasm of the multitude rather than the building an argument. 3 types. Bandwagon. Everybody's doing it. Therefore, you should do it.
You're dancing through the day. You're grabbing for the magic on the run. You're a whole new generation. You're loving what you do. I put a Pepsi in the motion, but that choice is up to you. Hey, you're the Pepsi generation. 'Cause I'm down and taste the thrill of the day. And feel the Pepsi way.
Everybody do it. That's why you drink
You're a whole new generation. You're a whole new generation. You're a whole new generation. You're a whole new generation.
Ooh, peer pressure.
Yeah, there's one more. Hold on. All right, you're gonna love this one. This is all about water. And if you can figure that out by watching this until the end, let me know. I can.
Here come the upstepper. I'm the lyrical gangster. Big up the crew in the area. Still love you like that. No, we don't die. Yes, we multiply. Anyone press me, the fire they sing. Act like you know.
Everybody's doing it.
I know what both don't know. Touch them up and go. This is JJ. Here come the upstepper. I'm the lyrical gangster.
They're doing it like they do.
Still love you like that. Here come the upstepper. I'm the lyrical gangster. Excuse me, Mr. Officer.
Oh, that was so cute.
So, and that's the funny thing. I mean, when you start to look at fallacies, we should be laughing because the reasoning is so silly. But you know what? The funny thing is, this one sells when you think about it. Everybody, this is probably one of the best-selling tools out there. We know it's fallacious reasoning, but the truth is, people like what others have. So that's, again, it's fallacious reasoning, but again, it's a selling tool, and we have to be watchful of this because we'll see Muslims and liberals say, "Well, everybody believes this." Well, who's everybody? Really? I mean, is everybody all the reporters? Did you exclude anybody who doesn't believe as you? And we see
Everybody
that
used to believe the Earth was flat at one time, also, right?
You're going to see a video later that has to do with that. You're going to die laughing when you see that.
Well, let me add something very quickly to that argument about fallacious reasoning. And Eric touched on it a while ago. Muslims say that you must be able to speak Arabic to understand and interpret what Islam and the Quran is saying. But what's the fallacy there? If your God is the true universal God, then he should be he should be able to explain himself in any language.
That's a fallacy that has to do with false authority.
Yes, of course.
We're going to get into that one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. No problem.
But again, they also use this argument saying all Muslims say this, because I've heard that. They all say, you have to know Arabic, but again, that's an appeal to a false authority, because if it's a false God, it's a false authority. So you have to look at it like that. They think they've got it, and they don't. All right. We're going to go back in, and I sent invites to a lot of people, so we'll see if they come and join. All right. Again, we should be laughing is what the way I look at fallacious reasoning.
We are now. You see, the president
one more.
Been glossing over the facts of his health care plan all summer. And this live address is our chance to make our dissent heard. Now, we have the text of the address right here, okay? Now, you look with here, let's see, right somewhere in the middle. Here it is. Okay, he is going to say this. The reforms I'm proposing would not apply to those who are here illegally, okay? Now, when he says that, all of us, all at once, together, are going to yell, "You lie!" Good, we all in agreement. Okay, good. That's going to be fun. They'll send a message. Yeah, Senator Roberts, your question.
I'm just worried this might come off as a major breach of congressional decorum.
Okay, now, normally I would agree. I mean, if only one guy yelled, "You lie!" I imagine they would call him out on it. But all of us, remember school? If we all do it, we can't get in trouble. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, it's been a long time for some of us, right?
All right, who remembers that? That actually happened.
We can all get in trouble, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
So this is the arguments of people. The second one was draping oneself in the flag. The argument asserts that a certain stance is true or correct because it is somehow patriotic, that those who disagree are unpatriotic. Then there's the snob approach. All the best people are doing it, so it can't be wrong, can it?
You know, if you were to follow a busy doctor as he makes his daily round of calls, you'd find yourself having a mighty busy time keeping up with him. Time out for many men of medicine usually means just long enough to enjoy a cigarette. And because they know what a pleasure it is to smoke a mild, good-tasting cigarette, they're particular about the brand they choose. In a repeated national survey, doctors in all branches of medicine, doctors in all parts of the country were asked, "What cigarette do you smoke, doctor?" Once again, the brand named most was Camel. Yes, according to this repeated nationwide survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Why not change to Camels for the next 30 days and see what a difference it makes in your smoking enjoyment? See how Camels agree with your throat. See how mild and good tasting a cigarette can be.
I'm sorry. It still makes me laugh. All right. Has anybody seen that one?
I have not seen that one, but that is hilarious. Most doctors smoke it, so it's got to be the best cigarette.
Oh, so I'm laughing. Here's the thing I've seen with that's close to this, especially around the abortion issue today. You'll see some doctors saying, "Well," I mean, I saw it this week. Someone was saying, I'm up on Facebook a lot, and I work in different rooms in there, groups in there, I should say, and one was saying, "Well, a fetus is not a human." Really? Do you know what a fetus is defined as? It's defined as a stage of infancy. Oh, or I'm sorry, I'm saying the wrong term. They could even say preborn child or preborn baby. But yes, it's a stage. It's not a thing. And but if a doctor, yeah, because somebody uses the term wrong, that's funny. Yeah. All right. We're going to get into tradition, and this should make you laugh as well. And I probably killed that. I took it to the hilt because this is one of my things to enjoy. Appeal to tradition. Again, I'm a music teacher's kid, so
Toby.
yeah, so you're kind of stuck with the music teacher's kid, taking it to the hilt on this one. We do it this way because we've always done it this way. That makes it right. Oh, nothing else makes it right but tradition. Keep thinking about that. And it'll start in just a few seconds. We've always done it this way because and tradition is the only reason, and that's what it comes down to.
But here, in our little village of Anatevka, you might say every one of us is a fiddler on the roof. Trying
This is as loud as I can get it. I'm sorry.
pleasant, simple tune without breaking his neck. It isn't easy. You may ask, why do we stay up there if it's so dangerous?
for what he's talking about is standing on the roof. They would fiddle on the roofs.
Anatevka is our home. And how do we keep our balance? That I can tell you in one word. Tradition! 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 Because of our traditions, traditions for many, many years. Here in Anatevka, we have traditions for everything. How to sleep, how to eat, how to work, how to wear clothes. For instance, we always keep our heads covered and always wear a little prayer shawl. This shows our constant devotion to God. You may ask, how did this tradition get started? I'll tell you. I don't know. But it's a tradition. And because of our traditions, every one of us knows who he is and what God expects him to do.
Day and night must scramble for a living, feed a wife and children, say his daily prayers, and who has the right, as master of the house, to have the final word at home?
Yeah, again, I probably played that. There's a lot more to that part, and I probably played that too long, but I like the part where he talks about why we do what we do. I don't know. Tradition. And it sounds silly. But let's talk about that concept of the narrative that there is only one version of the Quran. Where does that come from? And what do they say? I don't know. What makes you believe that? Tradition. So we see that every day when you're talking to Muslims in particular. It's laughable. The truth is, it's laughable. And I mean, again, I would. I don't know if you want to hear more of that one, but I'm just going to go back. Did you have a comment, Eric?
Yeah, I was just going to say it's like kissing the black stone.
Yes. Why do we do that?
Right.
I mean,
Muhammad did it. Why did he do it? Well, we don't know, but he kissed the black stone, so we're going to do it.
Yeah. And when you ask them that, did Muhammad kiss the black stone before he found Allah? Read the seerahs. Yes, he did. According to the stories. Yes. I mean, so if he kissed the black stone before he followed Allah, so he was a polytheist. Oh, so what's the purpose of the black stone? Again, tradition. There's no. Some of these things are just humorous, and you have to laugh along with it. And if you laugh at fallacies, this is the way to remember them. And sometimes the things you laugh at most make you remember them best. All right, I'm gonna skip a little ahead. I know I probably put a little too much song in this one, being the music teacher's kid. All right, here we go. Appeal to improper authority using. Oops.
Your Honor.
Hold on a second. Let me go back. All right. Appeal to improper authority using a famous person or a source that may not be reliable or who might not know anything about the topic. George, I don't know if you're listening, but this is what you wanted. This is appeal to improper, the false authority. All right. And this attempts to capitalize upon feelings of respect or familiarity with a famous individual. It is not fallacious reasoning to refer to an admitted authority if the individual's expertise is within a strict area of knowledge.
Your Honor, the flatness of the earth is one of the most hallowed precepts of dinosaur tradition. Yet there are those among us who would require some proof that the world is flat. Fair enough. Let the record show that I now offer absolute and unimpeachable evidence. A guy in a lab coat. You are an engineer with lots of impressive degrees.
That is correct.
And you work at the We Say So Corporation.
That is also correct. The Classroom Globe Division.
And just what have you brought here to show us today?
Only this. And we have a warehouse full of these things. Proof enough for you, Missy. Huh?
I laugh at that one because that is that appeal to that false authority that we keep seeing over and over again, and we have to find. I think appealing to the Quran as a source of ultimate truth or a source. I laugh when Aladdin says. I mean, he argued with me saying, through text in YouTube, he was saying Allah is a prophet. I said, show me that in the Quran. He gave all three verses that show where use Muhammad's name, and not one of them said he was a prophet. It said he was a messenger, but he claimed they said prophet. No, and he couldn't do it.
Yeah, well, their claim is always, oh, but a prophet is a messenger. So.
And the Quran actually says the opposite. It says that there are messengers are different because messengers confirm the word of a prophet, and if they don't, they confer the message of a prophet. So you can't really be both. So actually, a messenger is a higher calling according to the Quran. So if he's a messenger and he's not a prophet, okay, that would explain why he had no prophecies, except for, the only valid prophecy that I hear, he said, if I'm a false prophet, Allah will cut my aorta. That's the only prophecy I know that maybe it's the only, maybe he recognized that is, he had to say he was a liar and a thief. I don't know. That is the only one that I can think of. So, yeah, this is that false authority. Eric, how often do you encounter that one?
We just encountered it yesterday in Clubhouse, where there's a guy that he kept appealing to scholars. He goes, I don't know. I would have to look at what the Tasfir says about that particular verse. I would have to see what the scholars say about the Tasfir about that particular verse to know what it means, to fully understand it. This is, again, where if you cannot read something, this is where what I keep telling Muslims, if you cannot read a book without somebody telling you what you just read, you're in a cult. And that's exactly what it is. It is a cult, because what do? They appeal to the scholars. And what makes the scholars the scholar? Well, they just appeal to other scholars. And what makes those other scholars? And appeal to other scholars. And then they keep appealing, and they get back to these hadith. They get back to the Quran. And when you get right to the nub of it and you start discussing, okay, well, the hadith weren't compiled for 250 years after the death of Muhammad. So how are you going to consider them authoritative, the hadith that the scholars appeal to? And the Quran, well, we have the Sana Quran that predates the Quran. I mean, it dates clear back to the 4th and 5th century, for Pete's sake. So if you're going to keep appealing to these things, you're eventually going to run out of appeals until you can no longer appeal to the truth.
So I think one of the reasons I think appealing to the Quran is as a false authority is simply Surah 7:1. 7:1 by itself. Usama Dekdak translates it into English. ALMS. It's the only one word. The funny thing about it being in Arabic. That's the literal translation, ALMS, from it's close to, I guess I would say close to a transliteral that time, because there is no Arabic word for ALMS.
Alms? Is that
it comes out as the word alms, but in Arabic that doesn't mean anything. In fact, the scholars say only Allah knows what it means. Mm-hmm. So how do you say the Quran is clear if only Allah knows what it means, and if that's what your scholars say. So this is one of those things where you got to sit there and laugh, and you're appealing to the Quran as an authority, as a clear, the most beautiful book. But if your authority and your scholars say only Allah knows, how is that communicating? It's a poor communication device. Then that's where I've challenged. I'd love for this Aladdin guy to prove me wrong. I mean, I want him to try to come on and dare to say the Quran is a clear communication device when the scholars even say it's not. So that's just one of the things I'm getting at. All right, let's go back to that video. All right. And let's see the next one. Appeal to emotion. An emotion appeal to justify a conclusion. If a person tries to use emotion merely for the sake of getting the reader to accept what should be a logical conclusion, the argument is a fallacy. Earlier in the episode, Quagmire gets accused of statutory rape.
Please, go ahead, Mr. Quagmire.
Look, I know everyone's sitting out there judging me today, but before you do, please know I had it pretty rough growing up. My dad was a military man, so he wasn't around much. And my mom? Well, let's just say she was a little promiscuous. In fact, I think my problem started the day I was born.
Mr. Quagmire, your story is a sad one, but that doesn't excuse your actions. I have no choice but to sentence you to 20 years in prison.
Oh, so the judge didn't fall for his... All right. I'm muting you, Connie, I think, because I don't know if you think your mic's on. But, when you think about this, they didn't know. I mean, he really didn't know. I mean, that the appeal... Anybody... I'm going to go to the next one. Begging the question, circular reasoning, petitio principii. This term is sometimes used interchangeably with circular reasoning. Assumes evidence for their argument, the very conclusion they're attempting to prove. They engage in the fallacy of begging the question. This does not allow inquiry as to if a premise is correct. Now, that's extremely important. All right, so here we go. And
philosophical concepts explained in brief in a posh English accent. Begging the question. Contrary to popular usage, begging the question is a technical term that is often misapplied. In logic, begging the question is assuming the conclusion you're trying to prove. It's a type of circular reasoning, first identified and written about by Aristotle way back in the 4th century BC. For instance, the Da Vinci Code is a true story. How do you know? Because it says it's true at the start. What you've done there is you've assumed that everything in it is true in order to prove that it is true. You've actually appealed to the very thing in question, namely the truth of what's written in the book, as proof of itself. You've gone in a circle. Try this one on for size. My boyfriend doesn't lie to me. How do you know? Because he says so. How do you know he's telling the truth? Because he's honest. Again, you've actually used something as proof that is the very thing we are trying to question. You'll often hear people say begs the question when they actually mean raises the question. Don't get them mixed up, they are not the same. Interestingly, the actual phrase begging the question comes from a mistranslation. The medieval philosophers who looked at the Latin petitio principi correctly identified petitio as being derived from the Latin verb petere, meaning to beg. That's where we get the English word petition from. But petere can be used to mean make for, seek, desire, attack, move towards, or claim, as in, you claim the conclusion as one of your premises.
And the joy of... All right. And here's another one of these.
What an escape. Captain Kirk is the best starship captain in the fleet. That's why he was assigned command of the Federation's flagship. He's great, all right, but I don't know that he's the best. They gave him command of the flagship because no other captain was as good as he is. Captain Kirk is the Enterprise's commander, and the Enterprise is the Federation's flagship, isn't it? Well, yeah, I guess so. Well, that proves it. Captain Kirk is the best starship captain in the fleet. That's why he was assigned command of the Federation's flagship. Excuse me, gentlemen. I couldn't help overhearing. Yes, sir? The argument you are employing, Mr. Kyle, is not logical. In fact, it exhibits the fallacy of petitio principii, also known as circular reasoning or begging the question. The argument seems to make sense. That may be so, but the form of the argument is invalid. Arguments employing this fallacy all assume a premise statement which has the same meaning as the conclusion. You essentially were saying that Captain Kirk is the best starship captain in the fleet, and assigned to Starfleet's flagship because no other captain was as good as he is. You employed circular reasoning because the phrase "no other captain was as good as he is" is the same as saying he is the best starship captain in the fleet. Oh, indeed. That is not to say that Captain Kirk is not the best captain in the fleet, Lieutenant. I believe he is.
All right.
Philosophical.
All right. So I'm just going to go back. Anybody else think that was funny? Oops.
I just
Yeah,
love
that was
Spock.
funny.
Spock is hilarious. That's just not logical.
Yep.
No kidding, it's not
Testing.
logical.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you, Tommy. Yeah.
Okay,
Loud,
cool.
clear.
I muted you earlier because all we were getting was background noise. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was my bad. Geez, I'm going to the store. Yeah. But anyway, thanks, Paul.
Yeah, it's when I sit there and one of my dad's best friends, from college, I had a lot of respect for. He was one of my dad's principals for many years, and I should say when he first started out. I don't know about many years, but when he first started out, and somebody I would highly respect. And he's liberal, so one day he and I are debating, and he starts to use circular reasoning. I'm like, I have respected you all my life, and I'm getting concerned. You're an administrator. You're a principal. You're supposed to be one of those geniuses who understands logic, yet you're using circular logic. I'm very, very concerned. He's writing back to me, and he's like, "What do you mean?" I says, "You do know that circular reasoning is used to diagnose mental illness?" And he couldn't deny that because he works with psychologists and he works with psychiatrists. As a school principal, you would do that, and you would be recognizing these things. Yeah. So I bet he probably went back. I don't know. He was he had to be retired by then, but he had to have friends that were still, because my dad, even up until his early 80s, was still, conversing with his friends that were, other people that worked in the building, and he was an elementary school teacher. There's somebody who truly loved teaching music. All right, let's keep going on. I
was just going to add to that, Paul, that the Quran does the same thing. With if this was not from Allah, then go ahead and provide a verse that is like it. What kind of limp, lame argument is that? To say, okay, if this was not from Allah, then okay. When you open up the Quran, and let me just give you an example of which one was it here? We surely have given you preeminence, so serve your Lord with full dedication and sacrifice. That wasn't it. Destroyed will be the hands of Abu Lahab, and he himself will perish. Of no avail shall be his wealth, nor what he has acquired. He will be roasted in fire, and his wife the portress of firewood. We will have a strap of cure rope around her neck. Okay, so this is supposed to be the words of Allah, the eternal words of Allah, addressing a guy by the name of Abu Lahab, condemning him to hell, and his wife too. Now, I could produce something much better than this easily, but of course you have to understand it in the original Arabic and recite it in the original Arabic in order for it to sound like it could not be produced by anybody else. I would, you could cite all kinds of passages from the Bible, but that again would say, okay, well, that's scripture. All right, well, fine. How about we look at some of the poetry? The Annabelle Lee poem. I mean, that's one of the most beautiful poems ever written, and I would pick that one 1,000 times over this screed here in Quran 111. So again, this is when we start appealing to authority and the circular reasoning. This is exactly what you get. Quran says, if it hadn't been from Allah, you would not be able to produce a verse like it. Well, that's horse crap, because you don't provide us any type of criteria or some type of metric or rubric from which to measure that from.
I keep finding it silly. This is where we should be laughing, and we should all be laughing at bad reasoning. This is fallacious reasoning is just, it's bad. You can't call it. I mean, it's false. It's ridiculous. And if we know the names of the fallacies, and you can throw them back at the persons you are debating with, you can say, "Do you know that you just used fallacious reasoning? This is called this fallacy." I think that's important to do. When I had my little debate with Aladdin in text, I could throw that back at him, and it's actually important. The little Filipino dancer. Again, this show is dedicated to your education. If you dare to watch, we're talking about you, Aladdin. You could learn something. I hope and pray that you learn about logical reasoning and fallacies. That will help you leave Islam. All right, let's go.
Amen.
And that's, the truth of the matter is, if you learn about fallacious reasoning, whatever faith structure you're in, if it's not truthful, you will leave it. All right, so I'm just going to go on.
Concepts explained in.
All right. I think I had a problem with the video here. All right, so let me go back a little bit.
The argument you are assigned to Starfleet's flagship because no other captain was as good as he.
English.
All right. I think I was trying to edit. I made a mistake in this. So.
Begging the question. Contrary to popular use.
Okay. Hasty generalization. Mistaken use of inductive reasoning when there are too few samples to prove a point.
That the liberals are always so angry because they believe the grandiose promises of the liberation movements. They're disappointed because most women do not wish to be liberated from their essential natures as women.
This was Dan Quayle's wife made a hasty generalization in a 1992 Republican convention. So, yeah, this is slamming both on Republicans and Democrats alike.
Hello, ladies. Look at your man. Now back to me. Now back at your man. Now back to me. Sadly, he isn't me. But if he stopped using lady-scented body wash and switched to Old Spice, he could smell like he's me. Look down. Back up. Where are you? You're on a boat with the man your man could smell it. What's in your hand? Back at me. I have it. It's an oyster with 2 tickets to that thing you love. Look again. The tickets are now diamond. Anything is possible when your man smells like Old Spice and not a lady. I'm on a horse.
This is to all those women out there who love fallacious reasoning.
The Axe Apollo Space Academy.
I'm sorry. That one makes me laugh every time I see it. So we
run around a burning building, risk your life to do it, and then, hey, there's an astronaut right there.
I don't know where the astronaut came from.
That's hilarious.
I could get, maybe if that's your husband. I mean, Yeah. Nothing beats an astronaut.
Well, that's what I thought it was initially. Was her husband was looking at her, Googling this guy, and then it's just some kind of spacesuit on.
Well, you run into so hasty generalizations. Most Muslims are told what the scriptures, the biblical scriptures say, and they'll come out and make these statements. And if you join clubs on groups on Facebook, like Islam is dying, or I mean, I probably belong about 20 different groups like that, and I'll make a comment like, look, you haven't even read the Bible, because all this stuff you just claimed is negated in the scriptures. They make these hasty generalizations or hasty statements. They're not even. They're like, they come to these conclusions without actually reading any of the scriptures. And this is, I guess you could almost say that with the last person you had on, Eric, he was accusing all these white people of being racist,
right?
And he really hadn't. It doesn't sound like he's even really interacted with them.
It sounds like he lives in a cocoon, is what it sounds like. I mean, when he starts trying to use these. This is what he's doing. He's using arguments from the 1950s and 1960s in 2022, and he's trying to make them work. And he simply cannot. You cannot. You can't square that circle. That the race relations between white people and black people today is the same as it was when these articles that we're going through on the show, were written. I would also. I had a train of thought here. Hold on just a second. Well, you got me off of it. Sorry. Okay, never mind. Can't remember what I was going to say.
These generalizations, we see them, and I think.
Oh, I got it. Hold on. I'm sorry. The Bible's been corrupted. Argument.
Yes.
We know it's been corrupted. Why? Well, there's all kinds of variants in it. Well, okay, so who and when what are the variants? Tell me what the variants. Tell me where it is corrupted, and when it was corrupted, and how you know it is corrupted. And they generally get to. I mean, they can't. I mean, they can't do it. I mean, normally. Now, some of them, they have some manuscripts. Well, this manuscript says this, and then this manuscript says this. And okay, you have an argument that you have a variant, but you don't have corruption. You just have a scribal error, and that happens quite a bit when people copy stuff. But one of the funniest arguments I saw was, I think it was over on God Logic's website or a YouTube channel, when he's dealing with Fib and Farouk.
That's been making the rounds.
So he asked Fib and Farouk to show him in, I think it was the Gospel of Mark, what he's talking about. And Fib and Farouk is so ignorant of the Bible, he's going to the Old Testament looking for the Gospel of Mark.
That was hilarious.
He's like, you're going the wrong way. Yeah. So these guys, when they start making these arguments, these hasty accusations and generalizations about the Bible, when it gets down to the details, they rarely can provide. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, and that's something that we need to. This is the thing. One of my former students, Julio, who actually does Wake 'em Up Ministry on YouTube, and I recommend that to everybody. He's teaching a class right now, and his statement is, if we don't answer these objections, we don't answer these fallacies, these things, who's going to stand up for Christ? Who's going to do that? It's our responsibility to be that example, to be that light. So this is one of the reasons why I'm pointing out these fallacies, and hopefully you will laugh your way through the rest of this. All right, so I'm just going to go on to the next one. All right, here we go. And I will credit YouTube for having many of these things on YouTube, so I took them from there. It establishes that this is for false cause fallacy. It establishes that a cause and effect relationship where there is none.
Ernie. Well, hi, Bert. you still have that banana in your ear? What? I said you still have that banana in your ear. Yeah, Bert, I know. You know? Ernie, why is that banana still in your ear? Listen, Bert. I use this banana to keep the alligators away. Alligators? Ernie, there are no alligators on Sesame Street. Right. It's doing a good job, isn't it, Bert?
The nonsensical reasoning of Ernie. I remember that from when I was little. That's what made me laugh and keep that one. All right. This is the one I think that is extremely important. Irrelevant conclusion, red herring. A deliberate attempt to change the subject or divert the argument from the real question.
Figure. So here I want to highlight the differences between the two. The name red herring comes from an old method of training dogs for fox hunting. The goal is to train the dogs to follow the fox's scent, even if the dogs encounter other smells that are potentially distracting. So what they do is they let the fox go, so the fox leaves a scent trail. Then, before letting the dogs go, they drag a bunch of smelly red herrings across the fox's trail, like this. Then they release the dogs. When the dogs hit the herring trail, they'll be distracted by the smell, and some will be inclined to follow the herring trail instead. So the trainers try to get the dogs to stay on the fox trail and resist the urge to follow the herring.
Now, children do this a lot, so think about
How
it.
do I apologize for this? Oh, apology about 3,000. Oh.
This is an apology from
Kenji and Mike in the kitchen.
that blowfish you just ate was lethally poisonous. An ambulance is coming, but you're pretty much screwed. We're sorry for the inconvenience. What? But hey, Bud Light?
Nice.
See? It's all good.
Refreshingly smooth Bud Light. Always worth it.
Quick, give him the check.
I couldn't help but laugh with that one. How many times does this happen when you're out there? I'm not sure you're going to have that exact scenario, but think about it. How many times are we told? Are we told? I mean, we're having a good argument. We're getting someplace, and they set up a distraction. I was watching one of the ones with Uthman's. Ibn Farouk is Uthman, was it Ibn Farouk Uthman or whatever, and one of his workers was there and was just providing a distraction to go from one topic to another rather than answering anything. You know who are masters of this? The best at it in the world? Your children. You know, they know how to, you know, they figure out how to make mommy and daddy do things. They're good at manipulating. And, you know, if you think about it, you can think of your children at some point changing the topic to get you to forget, you know, what you were angry about or that they were in trouble. You know, they do this. Connie is a mom. Darcy, I'm guessing you're a mom too. I'm sure you can remember a chance when your children did this kind of thing. I don't know if either one of you want to respond. But I know that my children would try to change the topic. And, you know, I look at a lot of the reasoning that I see done in debates. We can look at the Kenny guy as probably one of the masters of this also. He changes the topic constantly when the questions, the premises don't fit his kind of reasoning. He knows he's going to lose, so he changes the topic. You can look at his last debates. Well, the topic was Muhammad's marriage to a 6-year-old girl and, you know, betting her at the age of 9, was it moral? So Kenny changed the argument. I mean, the discussion totally to not was it moral, but
you weren't there.
Did it actually happen? Yeah. Did it actually happen? And he couldn't, you know, And then he didn't use Islamic sources, which
Right. When you went to when you go to the Islamic sources, he would quote an Islamic source that is not narrated by Aisha, that says that she was 9 when Muhammad consummated the marriage or raped her, basically.
He was using modern sources, which was hilarious.
Well, he was using modern sources, but what I'm saying is that when he does engage in hadith, he does not use hadith where Aisha is being cited as the narrator of the hadith. And there are several hadith out there there are hadith out there where that says that she was 9 years old, 18 years old when he died, all these things. But he uses those. Well, you have all kinds of other hadith that are narrated by Aisha, where she says, yes, I was 9 years old when he consummated the marriage with me. He doesn't say that because his argument is well, nobody was there. Nobody knows for sure. This is all conjecture. They're just saying that she said this, but you have hadith where she is actually saying it, and that's the ones that he avoids.
That's that red herring trail. Go chase this little thing for a while. Yeah, and that the hilariousness of that kind of extremely bad reasoning, funny reasoning, again, laughable reasoning. This is the reason people who engage in this in a debate should be laughed off the stage. And that's, again, point out the fallacious reasoning. Let them know it's bad, it's false reasoning. It makes them look like a fool. I mean, point it out. Tell them that you don't want to be, we don't want you to look like a fool. We want you to have a logical argument, to be able to carry on a logical discussion. Aladdin, I hope you're listening. Because this is for you. Again, this show is dedicated to your illogical presentations. Anything else, Darcy, Connie? Oh, okay. I guess I'm.
Hold on. Right. It's always that if Aisha was 9, but then they go back, just flip over to Rebecca was 3.
Yeah, I saw that.
Projection, right? Projection. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. They're saying, well, look how evil Isaac was when he married Rebecca. He was 90 and she was, which is stupid. It's not true, but that is a classic case of projection, because they'll say, well, Mary was 12 when Joseph, who was 70, married her. And again, this is projection, trying to make Muhammad look credible, right, by making Joseph and Isaac look incredibly bad. And so again, it's projection. It's just a
and the funny thing, the red herring, if you go for this red herring, you could, if you want to, I wouldn't, but you have to ask them point blank, name your source. Name your source. Name one verse in the Bible that says these things. Okay,
well, they're all extra biblical sources is what they'll cite, because even using, this is the Muslim math is what they do in order to show that Aisha wasn't 9 years old. They'll bring up some other things there, some red herrings, to show that she was 19, 29, or whatever the heck it was. And then they'll bring up other outside extra biblical sources to show that Rebecca, or do some type of weird math in order to show that Rebecca was, what was it, 2 years old, 3 years old, or whatever, when Isaac married her, or some other Catholic commentary to show that Mary was 12 and that Joseph was 90 or whatever. I can't even remember the names. It's so disgusting with the way they try to do this. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to show that Muhammad, even though Muhammad was disgusting when he was 54 and Aisha was 9, look at all these other people that were not supposed to follow their sunnah to begin with. I don't follow the sunnah of Joseph, and I don't follow the sunnah of Isaac either. But to follow the sunnah of this scumbag that's 54 and she was 9, no, I'm sorry, it just doesn't work out.
That's again, if we have to be careful. And when you're having an argument, you stay on topic. A debate. Let me put it. Sorry, not an argument, but a debate. Stay on topic. Don't let anybody distract you from the goal. That's especially when you have an opponent whose goal is to win, and if he can distract you, he believes he's won. And that's, Amen. That's the issue. That's one of the reasons why, when when Aladdin wanted to debate me, I asked him, okay, let's debate on the topic that the Quran is a clear communication device. You can go for it and say, I'm for it, or you can choose to do something else. Now, it's extremely important to stay on the topic. So Aladdin would not defend that the Quran is a clear communication device. Now, I find that hilarious. You know, it's not my book. He would have to defend that, and I would have to attack it, which I found really easy to do. But you know, when somebody will not defend their faith to say their book is a clear communication device, that's where you end up in some silly stuff. Oh, Connie, we keep bouncing in and out. Are you okay?
Man, my thing isn't, and now I'm trying to Bluetooth it, and it's giving me a trouble. Sorry.
That's all right. Hope everything's going okay. Now, I've got, let me see, I don't know how much more I have to go. I think I'm down near the end. If I have one more to go, I'll be surprised. Let me just go back and let's see. I think I've got maybe one more. And come on. A straw man. Okay. The name comes from the idea of a boxer or fighter who meticulously fashions a false opponent out of straw like a scarecrow and then easily knocks it over in the ring before his admiring audience. Now, we've all seen this kind of trick. Again, this is very close to the red herring. Basically, they overstate, they includes lame attempts to prove an argument, overstating, exaggerating, oversimplifying, and you'll have a good laugh with this little video. I like this particular gentleman, and
straw man fallacy. Contrary to what many people would have us believe, a straw man is not simply an argument that you dislike or find inconvenient. Rather, it is a version of an argument that is misrepresented, simplified, so that it is easier to knock over. Just as an actual man made of straw is a less solid version of a man made of flesh, a straw man argument is a less solid version of a fully fleshed out argument. A straw man replaces or represents whatever actual argument is being made. Straw manning can come in many different forms. It's not even always intentional. You might accidentally construct a straw man if you don't fully understand the depth of an argument. And that is fine. It happens to the best of us. However, to intentionally misread or misrepresent an argument to simplify the process of discrediting it, that's a little bit less forgivable. To take nuanced points out of context, to ignore crucial information, to even exaggerate claims to the point of absurdity, which is then easier to refute, these are all straw man tactics. For example, Mike and Straw Mike are having a conversation about how to responsibly depict awful stuff in media. I don't think it's too much to ask that when a media creator wants to show heinous or awful stuff, they do so in a context that shows that that stuff is heinous and awful. Oh, so now we're not allowed to show violent or terrible things unless we include some long-winded sermon about how bad things are bad? I think creators should be able to show or do whatever they want. The original argument states a preference for what Mike thinks constitutes the responsible use of media. The straw man argument recasts this as something much simpler and easier to agree with. Freedom is good, censorship is bad. But now Mike and Straw Mike are no longer arguing about the same point, and so the conversation will quickly become unfocused and aggressive.
Yeah, now, here's my last one, slippery slope. As speaker argues that the first step is taken, a second or a third step will inevitably follow, and much the same when take steps. Now, this is
driving. Cars that park themselves. An automated car driven by a search engine company. We've seen that movie. It ends with robots harvesting our bodies for energy.
So again, we have the slippery slope. Self-parking cars leads to robots, leads to robots harvesting our bodies. This next one is just hilarious.
When your cable company keeps you on hold, you get angry. When you get angry, you go blow off steam. When you go blow off steam, accidents happen. When accidents happen, you get an eye patch. When you get an eye patch, people think you're tough. When people think you're tough, people want to see how tough. And when people want to see how tough, you wake up in a roadside ditch. Don't wake up in a roadside ditch. Get rid of cable and upgrade to DirecTV. Call 1-800-DirecTV.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry, that one just takes the cake. Okay, and that's a real advertisement. People are, I mean, it's funny. Um, it's memorable. And you know what the funny thing is? They probably made a lot of money off that because it's funny and it's memorable, but it's fallacious. I don't run into many slippery slopes when I debate somebody because you can generally start to see it coming. You're like, wait a minute, you skipped a few steps there. You can see that coming, but when you do run into them, uh, this is where I like. Sometimes, I mean, this is where Christians are supposed to also, use discernment, and that becomes important to be able to not be distracted in your purpose. So you don't want to spend your time with someone who's going to lead you down that slippery slope. It's just, yeah, because your purpose is to share Christ. If you can use those people and keep them from trying to head down that slippery slope, and I say use them to teach others. Yeah, you can show other people. I think some of the best I've seen, it was actually the ones I probably didn't like as well. But after a while, when I start looking back at them, and I'll say some of these were Eric's interviews of people, and I sit there and I look at and I think about it afterwards. Like, wait a minute, that's a great example of, and this is another great example of. Like, okay, we look at Yaya insulting us and calling us less than pigs. That made me so mad at the time. I go back and I think about it. You're like, wait a minute, that's what we needed. It's what we didn't expect to see that. We didn't expect to hear it, but it's a perfect example, and we need to show that. Do you agree, Eric?
Yeah, when you let these guys talk and expose themselves, it works. And I remember that show with Yaya saying these things and how he agrees with the way Hatun was beaten and how she deserves it, and how he agrees that we are the 98-6 thing, the worst of creatures. The guy on Sunday, same thing, was agreeing with that we are indeed the worst of creatures. If you deny the word of Allah, you have to be the worst of creatures, because nobody would dare deny the word of Allah, because we know it's true. Well, how do you know it's true? Because it says it's true.
Oh, circular reasoning.
Right. Yeah. Another appeal of authority or circular reasoning. Whatever fallacy you want to put on that stuff, they're doing it.
It's fallacious reasoning. And that's so again, the point of this topic today is not only for us. I'd like, all of humanity to reach to start to grasp the concepts of what fallacious reasoning is. I do some writing on I think it's called academic.com or .edu, whatever it is. And I put some stuff up there. I get asked to review people's articles before they get published, and I'm pointing out some bad arguments and stuff. And I see that. And these things are actually articles that reach the concept of publishing, and they're going through pre-publishing reviews. And they have this kind of logic issues, and I'm kind of concerned. Right? It's not all I see, and it's not all fallacies that I'm seeing, but that brings big concerns to my head. Like, wait a minute, you're yeah. You have to say,
hey, Paul, I gotta get to a ball game.
All right. Hey, you have a great day.
Okay, thanks, guys. We'll see you on Sunday. God bless.
Good night, Eric.
Right. All right. So one of the next things I'm going to talk about, since we finally reached the end of that, let me just get to my notes. I'm going to leave that one for the last. Okay, I'm going to put this link in the chat room, and I'm going to pull it up too at the same time. All right. And let me put this in the chat room. Here we go. All right. So I recommend this article. And here's the reason why. This comes off HS Today, is Homeland Security Today. And this is an article about an indictment charges California man with trying to provide Hamas information to HTS, Homeland Security Today, about fundraising for Hamas. And this came out May 2nd. I sat there laughing about this when I thought about it. Okay. The funny thing is they don't want people, they try to hide these things, and they don't want people knowing. So last week I talked about zakat, all right, and how it's supposed to be paid by Ramadan. So take a look at the timing with this. So it's supposed to be paid before or during Ramadan. So this article starts: a federal grand jury returned a 4-count indictment Wednesday that charges an Irvine man with attempting to provide material support to 2 foreign terrorist organizations. That's Irvine, California. Jason Fong allegedly attempted in the spring of 2020 to provide Homeland HTS tactical, combat and weapons training material, as well as information regarding the making of chemical weapons and improvised explosive devices. The indictment further alleges in May of 2020, Fong attempted to fundraise for Hamas. The indictment further alleges that at the time he committed these offenses, Fong knew that each organization had been designated as a foreign terrorist organization by the United States government. The indictment contains allegations that a defendant has committed a crime. Every defendant is presumed innocent until proven guilty, of course. Fong has been summoned to appear for an arraignment in the United States District Court on May 23rd. So he's indicted. He's not yet convicted. So, he got caught with his hands in the cookie jar, rather giving part of the cookie jar away. And that's some of the fun of this, when you think about it. So, when you hear these things, you have to sit there and go, wait a minute. And that's the truth of the matter. All right. My next article, let's see. Get back to the joy of writing all this up, making sure I have enough. All right. This one comes from the Department of Justice, and I'm just going to put this in the chat room. This one, and we talked about jihad, we talked about zakat on Ramadan, and again, we have another. I'm just going to share this screen, and I have to make it just a bit bigger first. Let's see. Come on. All right, so let me go and share it. Some of these things, when the Department of Justice says something and they put it out pretty boldly, sometimes I think it's important to pay close attention. All right, so here we go. And can everybody see that, or do I need to make it bigger? I think I'll just make it bigger. All right. Jury convicts Dutch national for participating in terror finance ring. Today, a federal jury convicted, this was May 3rd, it was actually that on May 3rd, a federal jury convicted a Dutch woman on charges stemming from her participation in a terrorist financing ring. Now pay close attention to her name. Dutch woman. According to court records and evidence presented at trial, Faria Hassan. Does that sound Dutch? No.
Yeah, well, she could have changed her name.
It's not Dutch. That's where it get the term Dutch national, I think, is prejudicial. And here's the reasoning. It's more likely that she's from Somalia. And that's my issue here. And so she was involved with a group of women from more than a dozen countries around the world who ran a fundraising ring to provide financial support for Al-Shabaab from in or about February 2011 through 2014 through conduits in Nairobi, Kenya, Hargeisa, Somalia. The group of women funneled cash payments via money remitters directly to members of the terrorist group. According to members of the conspiracy, the money was used to fund safe houses and to purchase trucks and weaponry in support of al-Shabaab. The woman coordinated the payments using online chat rooms. Again, this is a form of zakat. This is that 12.5% of their zakat that they're supposed to pay. So how many, I mean, we're only catching a few Muslims at this, but every single Muslim is required to pay zakat, 12.5% of their zakat, to jihad. This girl and the people who worked with her got caught. So the question is, how many will get caught? I mean, when you think about it, if every Muslim's required. Let me just keep going. Hassan in particular was involved in fundraising in the Netherlands under false pretenses by presenting to donors that money was being collected to fund charitable ventures, such as schools or orphans. Whenever you see the word orphans mentioned with an Islamic charity, you can almost guarantee that it does what? It goes to jihad. Yeah. A lot of charities will cite their category. If they cite category 7, well, you know who cites category 7? Organizations like Muslim Student Association. They are financing what's called civilization jihad. Again, think about it. CARE, they consider themselves a zakat charitable organization. Oh, and how do they get that funding? Category 7. Yeah. And like I said, a lot of these places, they list their organizations category. How do they fall in? When you're category 7, that's where I start to think the United States government needs to say unconstitutional, you can't exist, because you're financing either sedition or you're financing terrorism. And that's, again, it doesn't take much intelligence for the United States to act on this, but they haven't. Let me keep going here. Hassan was convicted of conspiracy to provide material support to a designated terrorist organization. She faces a maximum of 15 years in prison. And when sentenced on July 22nd, this coming July 22nd, a federal district court judge will determine any sentence after taking into account the U.S. sentencing guidelines for other statutory factors. Again, if you think this woman is really from the Netherlands and has no connection to, let me guess, Somalia, I'd be, I really would be shocked. I mean, some of these news pieces, when you sit there and you read them, they're kind of mind-numbing. Let's see. And I'm going to keep going. Sweden. Now, this is the one that really caught me today. I'm going to share this. And I'm going to put the link in, but I have mine translated automatically into English through Google Translate. So you go to translate.google where I put this in, and you type this. You can copy and paste this link in, and it will come up in English. I've done this so often that it just normally comes up in English with me. So that's something I suggest. So that would help you, whenever you want to see something in another language, whether it's French, German. I can't tell you how many different languages I look at of news sources. This is my favorite for Swedish news sources. So, Connie or Darcy.
Oh, jeez.
What do you think we're talking about when you take a look at that?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Well, take a wild guess. What do you think we're talking about when you see that picture?
Well, somewhat Islam, but not the girls.
Oh, yeah, the girls. Yeah. There's something.
Like they're wanting to come against Islam.
No.
No. What are they doing then?
Muta.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Temporary wives, huh?
Yeah.
This is disgusting, Kenny Bomer. Do you see that, sir?
All right.
Yeah.
So the Muslim form of prostitution, pleasure marriage, is now established in Sweden. And I was reading this and I started laughing. Like I attacked this a little ways back, and here we are. This article came out yesterday, and I saw this and I started laughing. I go to Samnit every week. I love the articles. I love Kent Eckroth. Met him in person. I think he's a genius. He's a great man. he does what he can to get the truth out. And SamNet exists because of Kent Ackroth. So, yeah, if there's any way you can help SamNet stay alive, as much as I would love your finances, I think SamNet could probably use your help as well. In Sweden, they're one of the only non-government news sources. Just like in Canada, Sweden controls its media. Very Marxist in that respect. So think about this, that headline, Muslim form of prostitution, pleasure marriage now established in Sweden. In the Muslim world, there's been a long prostitution activity aimed at Orthodox people who cannot imagine violating Sharia. What are we talking about? Okay, Sunni and Shiites, okay. But still want to engage in temporary sex for money. It's also a lucrative source of income for imams. By marrying the believing Muslim man with the prostitute in a marriage that is automatically dissolved when the sex act turns haram into halal, so that the sex act receives the blessings of Allah. Now this form of prostitution is called pleasure marriage, and it has also been established in Sweden. It is the SVT. Now the SVT is a news source in Sweden that has made an attempt to map the existence of the Muslim so-called pleasure marriage, a term behind which hides sex trafficking and procuring, but tailored especially for believing Muslims. It is provided as one of the services of the imams. Keep thinking about this. These are the people who run the mosque in the country's mosque and often tax-funded Muslim communities. So your tax dollars in Sweden are going towards temporary marriages.
Wow. So they decided to take their country and run it in the gutter and in the sewer.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you can say bye-bye to Sweden, to the country then.
Justifying fornication is all it is.
Yeah. I mean, fornication, any sex outside of marriage is wrong. Let me put it that way. It doesn't matter if it's homosexual. It doesn't matter if it's masturbation. It doesn't matter if it's, straight sex, whatever kind. If it's outside of marriage, it's sin. All right. So now I said that, I just keep that in mind. As far as
you can't fornicate with your hand, man.
It's still sin.
Just saying.
It's still sin.
Just saying.
As far as known, there is no equivalent in Christian churches and denominations in Sweden, despite the fact that extramarital temporary sex relations are also considered a sin against God in Christianity. There it is. And this would only be said in SamNet and under people like Kent Ackroth. Temporary sex marriage for migrants who have left their wife in the home country. Yeah, they left their wife. They didn't give them any money. There's no financial support. Think about that. That's how nice they are. In addition to pleasure marriages that last only an hour for a single sex act, there is also automatic dissolution marriages that last for a week or a month for the Muslim man who wants a love affair without offending Allah and the Prophet Muhammad. In many cases, these are men who have left their wives in their home country and want to have sex with someone until their wife or wives arrive. Did you hear that plural? Yes, that's happening in Sweden. As the phenomenon is widespread and well known in the Muslim world, there have long been suspicions that it also came to Sweden with the extensive Muslim immigration, since the form of prostitution is an old Muslim custom that many imams and practicing Muslims consider to have support in the Quran. It enters into the sensitive discussion of what can be accepted within the framework of Swedish religious freedom.
It's such a mockery. They're saying that the women should cover themselves so they won't get molested by other Muslims, and then they do this. I've seen that picture before, but I didn't get it until you explained it. My question is do they do this in Saudi Arabia too, showing their legs for mutta?
Good question. Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. But
I'm betting they don't. I'm betting they do not.
Yeah, I'm betting that if a girl did that in Saudi Arabia, she would probably get what's the right word? Strapped or caned or beaten.
Scourged. Scourged at the site, right in front of everybody. Well, at least scourged. Whipped.
The part that kills me is the twisting. This is where civilization jihad is a very real thing. They're using the laws of the country against itself and keeping it from protecting itself. And
Yes.
that's what they're doing in Sweden. Now, the other thing that's up on this site is this week and last week, Rasmussen has been burning Qurans on a regular basis. This week and last week, there were attacks on places that Rasmussen was supposed to or was coming to, or there was a bomb planted this week at one of the sites. Somebody shot a gun aimed at him. What does he do? He's burning a Quran. If the third caliph, Uthman, could burn a Quran, why is it forbidden for anybody else? I mean, it's something the third caliph burned. And he burned more Qurans, according to Islamic history, more Qurans than Paludan can ever do. So why if he can do that? Now, here's the interesting thing. I was watching one of his speeches, and in general, having met him, I think he's quite often a pompous. I'm being polite. I'm not going to say the other word, but I look at him and I don't see him as being, in general, doing the right thing. But this last speech that I saw him give, where he was talking, okay, your Muhammad married a 6-year-old girl and fooled with her until she was 9 and then bedded her. And he's coming out and saying these things. And this is the guy you call a prophet. This is the guy that you want us to trust in. Are you serious? And he's coming out and he's using their scriptures and he's stating them right to them. This is who you believe in. And they
want us to follow his example.
Yeah.
To be a bunch of whores and thugs. No way.
Their response to those statements, Allahu Akbar.
Well, because they're the same way.
Yeah, it's
an act of worship to Allah when you do mota that pleases Allah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Your show is getting me ticked again, like you always do, Paul.
Well, the problem is that this stuff is in the news every day, but our news sources refuse to report them. CNN refuses, Fox News refuses, ABC, CBS, ABC, all these possible news stations who could tell us these things, and they refuse. And this I have a problem with. It severely bothers me. How can you consider yourself a news source and not share this? I mean, share the important information. Now, this one, this is a news source memory. And if there's one that's going to make you mad today, Connie, it'll probably be this one. Understand, this is from Dearborn, Michigan. Okay. They had an Al-Quds rally. And I'm just going to play the video, and it should, like I said, it'll probably make you mad.
Do you hear what I am hearing? Do you see what I am seeing? The quivering fear of that cancerous entity, the final raspy breaths of those Zionists and the breaking up of their allies. When Tel Aviv is razed to that ground, never to humiliation, we will shout.
We are for the complete liberation of Palestine from the river to the sea. And we make no distinction between Gaza or the West Bank or the lands of 48. The Zionists can admit that there is no two-state solution. Why can't some of us? What's left? Peaceful protests. Again, we have some people who want to remain acceptable in the mainstream. They want to look moderate. They're afraid of being.
So I'm just going to stop it here. Do you notice all these children here?
Oh yeah.
So these children are being brought in and to be encouraged. Okay, we know Hamas is a terrorist organization. All right, we
Yes.
know that the PLO is a terrorist organization. We know
Yes.
that all of these organizations that you can see them flying flags over. Okay, in this country, you notice they say Palestine correctly. If you
Right.
are Arabic, you're saying Falastin. Oh, if he were to say that, you'd get a lot of laughs, at least from English. But yeah, notice he's getting his piece correctly, and I'm having some laughs with that. Okay,
But you
and
also have to
other,
notice he's only given the one side of the story.
yeah, and he doesn't allow that. And you know, all these signs were manufactured and handed out by the children. Now that again, these people were this is right after a mosque was there, had a session. It's at I believe this is at a mosque. All right, and all these flags were handed out, and all the signs were made by one individual. So people were there, and you know they handed them out to make it look like there was a lot of people. They probably just came out of the mosque. All right, so let me just continue. All right.
Labeled as extremists, so they dissociate themselves from the noble, the honorable, the brave, armed Palestinian resistance.
I count 3
The only
homemade signs.
solution for
That's
our
some
brothers and sisters in Palestine
Henry
is armed
Ford
resistance. And we support
Center.
that. And we're with that in our hearts and in our entire beings.
Yeah, my question is where is their muta dresses at? Showing their legs. Huh? Right? Where are they at?
They're just
Yeah, so they're a lie. So they're showing a lie. They're trying to show Islam, you know, we cover our legs, we do this, we're all proper, but they're lying because they do muta.
Yeah, and you know, you can if you can pay for sex and consider that legal because Sharia rules, you know, is the overruling thing against your country's laws. And this is the stuff we have to look at. I mean, I'd be interested in seeing how many. We already know we have a former care official who's openly admitted on PBS that he's engaged in muta. That's Hassan Shibli we're talking about. He said that publicly on PBS. You know, I don't think PBS understood. So he's engaging in sex. He's paying for sex and temporary marriage. Nobody pursued that on PBS. That's sad.
Because they're all one heart, apparently.
I think it's ignorance, and some of this is willful ignorance. You know, there are some things I'll admit that sometimes I am willfully ignorant about. But when you're doing an interview and somebody asks, says they're engaging in muta, and you don't know what that is, you better ask a follow-up question, and they don't. Now, we've known this again for, I think we're pressing 2 years at this point, where Hassan Shibli got caught with his pants down, quite literally, and that's troublesome that no one's asking those questions. And again.
Well, see, I'm the kind of person that if I don't understand anything, I'll ask you. I'll say, what is that? I don't understand that. And so to me, if they're not asking that they don't want to get it out, because that'll open up a can of worms.
Yes.
You know, so I don't throw it on them that they're just ignorant, because anybody that doesn't know a certain word, you know, for the most part, I'm hoping that they would ask, what is that?
You know? And that's, you know, this is where, you know, we teach in public schools across America, we teach the importance of questions, asking questions. And we teach, I always taught my kids, you learn from your mistakes, and mistakes and questions are learning tools. So there's no stupid question. That was one of my rules. Again, if mistakes are learning tools and questions are all that important, no stupid question.
Amen.
Why do you need to ask a clarifying question when you come to muta? It's either they knew what muta was and they didn't want the rest of the world to know that they were talking to, because if that's the case, this is downright disgusting. All right. And it's scary to think that that's actually happening here in the United States, well, we know it is now. Thanks to Hassan Shibli. We owe him a thank you for that. Thank you for telling us Muslims are engaging in temporary marriage in the United States. It's not something many in the public knew, not something we wanted to admit, but it's happening. This next article is hard, and I'm just going to go to the site and share it. I do recommend this site. I say it's hard because we're talking about jihad, and jihad is never easy to talk about, especially when kids are involved. This is from Morningstar News. Came out May 9th. Children among 29 Christians killed in Plateau State, Nigeria. Fulani herdsmen mount several attacks in the same area. Fulani herdsmen in Nigeria killed 8 Christians in Bassa County, Plateau State on Thursday. This is last Thursday during the show, basically, after slaughtering at least 21 others in another area of the country in April, sources said. That would be Ramadan. At least 2 children were among those killed in the late Thursday attack on Sinke and Zarama villages in Kwal District, Bassa County. And the herdsmen also wounded 2 Christians, a spokesman for the predominantly Christian ethnic Rijwa said. The attack is no doubt the continuous perpetration of terror and mayhem in Rijwa land in attempt to forcefully eject the peace-loving Rijwa people from their ancestral land, as well as complete annihilation of the entire tribe. Davidson Mallison of the Uruguay Development Association said in a press statement, the attacks have become a daily affair as the marauders have assumed they are immune people as feeling untouchable, daring the authorities who are concerned. The identities of the slain are given, and we listen to these ages. Mary Jaya, 4. Esther Elijah, 5. Elizabeth Way, 21. Ira Way, 48. Lida Mandu, Titus Aga, 40. To think they have no problem killing children. They don't care. And there was raids, again, they talked about 77 different villages that they attacked. The 21 killed. I've been talking about that throughout Ramadan. And like I say, it's hard.
Yeah. These cowards hide behind children.
In general, what they do with children is steal them. The girls can become sex slaves, and the boys become child soldiers. That's the sad, sorry truth. They generally do not kill the children. They commit worse than act death on them, and there's no other way to explain that than worse than death. We have to be the ones to get out and share these truths. So my begging question for everybody is please hit the like bell, hit the share bell, get out there and share these truths. We talked about logical fallacies today for the importance of evangelism, and especially for the importance of apologetics and as a ministry as a whole. We've talked about the news because our news sources, our major news sources, are afraid, cowardly, and they don't share these things. Why? Because they might offend a Muslim. Well, that's problematic. If you're that far gone, civilization jihad has corrupted you. You've allowed the Muslim Brotherhood to rule how you think and act. Then something's seriously wrong with your behavior. You're no longer thinking like an American and thinking about being free. You're no longer thinking about your freedoms. You have given up and given away what is rightfully yours, the freedoms given to you by God that are guaranteed under the Constitution. And again, the Constitution says they come from God. It doesn't say they came from Allah. It says they came from God. Allah is not God.
Amen.
Yeah.
I'm.
And
I think it's important for us to get out there, to be bold. We can't stay silent. If we stay silent, no one hears about Jesus. And if we stay silent, no one hears these facts. I have been thrown off of LinkedIn since this past September, I think it was. And I'm going to be talking about that a little bit in my next show. I'm fighting to get back in. Now we have. I was thrown off of YouTube, off of LinkedIn. I mean, for sharing a video of Project Veritas. I have evidence that I was thrown off for doing that. All right, and my response lately is I wrote in and they said, no, you were thrown off for three different things. I says I wasn't suspended for any one of those three things. So I'm going to be talking about that in the next show. I'm going to hope there's someplace a lawyer who wants to take my case, because I have lost book sales. I had 18,000 connections on LinkedIn. 18,000 connections on LinkedIn. Can you imagine how many more would have watched this show or bought the books? How many more we could have directed towards shows like Eric's and everybody else's? Because that's what I was doing. I was sharing stuff like this. And my position stated on this site was I was the host of a Civilization Jihad Awareness. I was an author of Civilization Jihad and the Myth of Modern Islam. Okay, granted, at the time I had not yet retired. I had retired. But again, I had a lot of education friends. I had thousands of pastors that were following and listening to what the concern was. That the real concern is that I had an influence. Everyone here needs to have that influence. Here's the thing I'll tell you. Recruit people. Why? How do you do that? I say recruit them to your social media sites. Recruit them to create a group to whatever social media site you have. If you're using, what is that group that Eric and everybody else uses?
Clubhouse.
Clubhouse. If you want to use Clubhouse, create a group, share Christ. Make sure you do what you can to collect hundreds of, thousands of people to learn. It's important that we share Christ. Not saying something, not being that influential person, that's the thing we have to change about ourselves. We have to be those people that dare. And Connie and Darcy are those people that right now. Eric's one of them. And, we got Dr. Kufarophobia. We've got Rad and a few others. We are the ones that share and tell the truth. And you look at all these other ones like Usama Dakdak, and there was just Adam Secret, and I can keep going on naming some great names, David Wood. And I spend so much time listening to many of them because I want to become better at doing what? Sharing Christ, sharing the truth.
Yeah.
So don't
be
afraid.
Salt and light. Light exposes darkness, and salt will expose something that can't be preserved.
Light kills darkness. Light kills darkness, and that is
I'll
one of the
accept
things.
that.
It
I'll accept
kills
that.
darkness, because wherever light is, darkness can't thrive, and
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why we must be who we must be. God bless you all. I'm going to send us off with sharing a little thing on my book. You know what? I'm just going to skip that. I'm going to say good night to everybody.
Can
Thank you for
I say
listening.
something real quick?
Oh yes, please do.
To everybody who's watching right now and will watch, please share this video and spread the word.
Thank you. God bless
Amen.
everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Good
you, Paul.
night.